Hey, what's going on, Mayhem people? Today we are talking about how to fit more into your busy schedule. Look, if you're already engaged with Mayhem programming, which you are, we know that the kids and the brains at Mayhem like to overprogram. The programming is, qu'est-ce que c'est, dense. And so what we want to do is try to help you imagine and conceptualize where you're going to put in some of these other restorative recovery behaviors. So instead of looking at tools and tactics, which is what everyone loves to do, I have this new compression device or this new strategy. What I want to do instead is for you all is help you imagine what you can get done in the course of a day. So here we have what we like to call around the house the 24-hour duty cycle. And the reason we call it that is it allows us to appreciate that human beings are diurnal. It means that we are used to being on a sleep-wake schedule, and that pretty much that's going to inform what we can get done during the day. So when we begin to look at your busy working schedule, then we can begin to ask, where am I going to fit these behaviors in? So the first one is in the morning. Before you leave the door for work, this is an opportunity where we feel like you may have some agency and some control. What we'll pretend like is that the second you leave your house, and some of you are coaches going to the gym, or some of us are going to traditional work sites, you no longer have any control over your life. That you're lucky if you drink some water, you're lucky if you're able to move around a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But basically, I want you to think of is until you get back to your house, who knows what's going to happen. And for the realities of some of us who have families and are working jobs, that's not far from the truth. And so what we found is that if we front load some of the kind of key behaviors here in this 24-hour cycle around recovery, et cetera, that we can actually get a lot of work done before even our kids wake up, before we leave the house. So in the morning, we have a few goals. And we like to call these behaviors our base camp behaviors. The first order of business is that I'm going to give you one of three choices. One is that you're going to have a chance to do the hip spin up. And we have put that on the web many times. It's probably part of even some of our Mayhem programming. But it's an idea of just basically what does a modern sun salutation look like for athletes who are busy and working but are planning on squatting later. And the idea here is that, man, if I can get just 5 or 10 minutes of getting my hips open, later on in the day, it won't be as big a deal if I have a window of opportunity to train. So it's like if you're creasing a credit card, we'll put that big first crease in the credit card, and other creases are going to be easier, so we'll have a little bit more motion. So the hip spin up is a big idea for us, and one of the reasons we love that is that at the very least, we've touched hip extension, we've closed your ankles down, we've got some movement in the spine, we've got some breathing in there, we've moved your big toes, we're in hip flexion, we're touching some of the requisite components so that if you didn't train later on, you'd still have this incredible opportunity to have at least brushed and flossed your positions. You've touched it and reminded your brain you belong there. Second idea here is that you could do our shoulder spin up, and that is the same idea. That if very least we've touched some corners, we've touched some positions around the things that your rotator cuff and shoulder girdle are going to need. We've also, if you feel like you wake up and your neck is stiff, drop into the hip spin up or the shoulder spin up. If your hips are low back or stiff or lower body, you could use and choose one of those as a behavior modification where you're kind of tying the room together like a good rug. And then lastly, third choice in terms of movement is some kind of breath practice. And, something where you're doing Wim Hof style or Butraco or Oxygen Advantage. But the idea here is if you can make an effort to expose yourself to one of these three things first thing in the morning, you may find that your workout's a little bit better later on, you've had a little bit of input, you're a little bit more awake and lucid. Around food behavior, we really think that this is the place to get your protein macros and some fruits and veggies. And it's no secret around our house that we're huge fans of the 800-gram challenge. So the 800-gram challenge comes from our friend E.C. Sinkowski at Optimize Me Nutrition. And the idea is for the course of the day, we're going to try to get 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. And that can be all fruits, it can be all vegetables. You can do that solely in broccoli or kohlrabi, or you could do it in rutabaga or strawberries. A pound of cherries is 230 calories, I think. So the idea here is, man, we want more micronutrients in. And what we found is that, yes, it would be great if you could have a complete meal, but if you just had some protein, started your trail towards fruits and veggies, then what we know is you're going to be fed later on. Now, people like Rich tend to do a little bit of intermittent fasting. They like to have their first shake maybe 10 o'clock. That works for him. But for a busy working person, what we see is that most people who are skipping breakfast end up a little bit deficient on their total macronutrient counts for later on the day. And also, we tend to see that those people, especially young people, are underfed when it's time to train in the afternoon, if that's when they're doing. And we find that people are then going to later on try to eat too many calories after dinner and eating cookies or cookie balls. You know who I'm talking about here. So the idea is, man, if I do one of these sets of behaviors during the morning time, I'm going to leave the house having moved, having been fed appropriately or done some kind of aspect of breath work. And that means if nothing else happens the rest of the day, I can check the box. I've done a lot. Okay, so that's our morning set of behaviors. Coffee, whatever you want on top of that, that's fine. Later on in the day, this is how we think about what to get done during the day. So during the day, we have sort of a couple goals. One is to move, max out your non-exercise activity. What we're trying to do is decongest the tissues from the training stimulus. A lot of us are training in the morning, or we train in the evening and we haven't moved all night. So what we're trying to do is move those lymphatics through the system. The other thing we're trying to do is accumulate enough non-exercise activity, and the easiest way to think about non-exercise activity is to try to get your 10 to 15,000 steps a day. One of the things that we see is that there's a lot of disordered sleeping in our communities that we don't talk about enough. But one of the problems is even if I smash myself for an hour of training, it may not be enough movement where I've accumulated enough non-exercise activity and sleep pressure and fatigue. So the order of business for all of our special force groups, for example, is when we have sleep disruption or disordered sleep, we up our step count. Now, I don't have to step per se, but I could be moving more at the work. Can I have a choice of being at a standing desk? Can I have a choice of walking more, taking the stairs? What I want you to think about is during the day, if you can drink some water, max out your non-exercise activity, you're going to have tissues that are better prepared to be loaded in the afternoon. We're also going to sort of consummate that training stimulus. If you do it in the morning, you're going to keep kind of decongesting the tissues later on. And finally, we're going to accumulate enough non-exercise activity again that when it's time to go to sleep, you black out and fall asleep. So that's really our goal during the day. Let's move more and max that out. If you can eat another vegetable and protein or fruit and protein, that's the time to do it. And it's not time also to be thinking about how do I begin to prep for sleep. So sleep prep happens during the day. And I want to say that if you don't shut your caffeine off between 12 and 4, it's going to disrupt your sleep. So what we find is that Juliet, my wife, for example, is a little bit more caffeine sensitive. She tries to be done by 12 or 1 because she knows that a late caffeine bump will more likely keep her awake or disrupt the quality of her sleep. I really shut it down by 4 o'clock. I'm a little bit faster caffeine metabolizer. But if it's 4 o'clock, man, I don't flirt with that. That is a sketchy third rail. So if I can get off the caffeine earlier in the day, if I can max out my steps, then I tend to be able to fall asleep a little more faster. Okay, so now we're in the evening time. Now notice you are going to work in your training on top of this whenever it works. So evening, what I'm thinking about is, can I get 10 to 15 minutes of daily mobility? And this is why we actually created on our app a 10, 20-minute, and 30-minute follow-along daily mobility session. We currently call it the daily maintenance. But the idea is if you can conjoin a behavior, hey, I'm sore today, or my feet feel a little worked, or my back's a little tight, and you can get 10 minutes in of some soft tissue work before you go to bed, one of the things that we find is that you're connecting the dots between enhancing your recovery, so you can enhance your work volume later on, decreasing the session cost of the training session, eliminating or decreasing DOMs, and having all the benefits of being able to feel sleepy. No one gets up after a massage and says, let's fight, let's just do 1 rep max snatch. So the idea is if we can put that parasympathetic input in through soft tissue mobilization that conjoins or is connected to what you did during the day, man, we have a really busy, full, complete athlete day where I'm doing a little soft tissue work on something that hurts, or I want to recover or get prepared for tomorrow. I can think about it in either of those terms. But what we found is that 10 minutes is clinically significant, where if we have people engage in this 5 to 7 days a week of doing this 10 minutes of soft tissue maintenance, that ends up aggregating into a freakish amount of recovery, soft tissue care, soft tissue restoration, so that you can go out and go harder the next day. We find is that people end up accumulating fatigue and stiffness and delayed onset muscle soreness, and they either their desire to train falls off, their CNS can't keep up, or their desire to generate hard force during the end of the week starts to taper until they get a chance to recover. So we've found again that if I have 10 minutes, I don't have to do my whole body, just choose a single section. So if my quads, I'm gonna do 5 minutes on the left leg, 5 minutes on the right leg, and then call it good. 10 minutes is your minimum therapeutic dose. And if you and I are having an honest conversation right now, no way do you not have 10 minutes in the evening. I know you have 10 minutes right before you go to the bedroom. So just put down the Facebook, or Facebook, listen to us. I'm at Squarespace. Obviously, the idea is keep your roller, your ball right next to the TV in the evening and just roll around on the ground in the last 10 minutes. And what we have then is this 24-hour cycle where we are beginning to understand that, hey, this input thing or preparation for training is really a 24-hour piece, and that I'm gonna max out my sleep, of course. I'm gearing all my day so I can fall asleep more effectively, stay asleep more effectively. I get some movement in during the morning. I'm prepping some potential food. During the day, I max out just my non-exercise activity. In the evening, I get 10 minutes of rolling. What you'll see is that set of base camp behaviors are really easy to work into a very busy schedule without having to do a bunch of things. Protects your time at the gym so that you are doing the things you want to do at the gym, not the things that facilitate you doing the things at the gym, like how do I manage my painful shoulder? Well, I've already done shoulder spin up and I'm gonna work on it when I get home. So let's keep that gym sacrosanct. Let's really protect that gym time. And what we see is that when you wash, rinse, repeat this process of the 24-hour duty cycle for many weeks, you'll be shocked at how much harder you can work out. So welcome to the 24-hour duty cycle.